Okay, hey guys, continuing to talk here a little bit about narcissism and ultimately dismantling narcissism, how that's falsely interpreted, as always being negative in society and in some of these psychology and some of the terms that it's used in. But actually, it's a polarity. It could be negative, it could be positive, and actually, it could be neutral. Okay, in some aspects, but in the negative world where we have so many problems that are purposely put into our world in so many ways to fail and so many avenues to fail, usually it ends up being something negative. Okay, and but it didn't have to be. Okay, that's the real irony of it. That's the real ironic kicker of the whole deal, is that it didn't have to be negative in the first place. Okay, but they took negative actions. They subconsciously realized that they made mistakes. They subconsciously realized that they were weak. They subconsciously realized that they didn't meet the bar. They didn't meet the standard for excellence. Okay, that was set. Okay, and they don't want to admit it, and they want to. That may cause some shame or some guilt. And it has hindered their own growth. It's hindered their own ability to be strong themselves. And so it starts this narcissistic circle of toxicity, okay, a narcissistic toxic circle, okay, where these the jealousy, the greed, the envy, and but that never happened. They start this negative, okay, but it didn't have to be negative. It could be positive. Okay, so and how does somebody practice positive things, okay, and it's through being optimistic. Okay, so if you're optimistic, you should be thankful for the things that you have, everything that you have. You should be thankful for your cup being half full. You should be thankful for your every little drop that was in that cup, and that you admitting your own flaws, your own weaknesses, your own imperfections, you actually realizing that, you realizing that you did the best job that you could at the time, and you're okay with that because you're willing to give it your best shot again tomorrow and grow, and you're okay with that. Okay, and you've taken that step, and once you've come to that realization, so a realization has to be made that I wasn't perfect, but you know what, I was able to learn a lot and grow a whole lot. Okay, and at the end of the day, you were better. Okay, that creates security. Okay, so you're secure with knowing that you did the best job that you could. Okay, that creates security. Okay, and you're okay with that. And then once this happens, you can start to practice humility. Okay, you can start to practice humility and see, because a lot of times a narcissist, they can't talk about somebody else's strength or somebody else's talents or somebody else's abilities, because their own insecurities make them feel that they think, but subconsciously they know that somebody else, that they were weak themselves, or they didn't meet the standards. They didn't do this, and subconsciously, but by talking by somebody else, they think it takes the focus off of them. Okay, and they don't have to answer to these same standards. Okay, but if you tell a narcissist that, it can start the narcissistic tailspin, where that snake starts chasing its tail, and the narcissistic circle of toxic spew just it starts. Okay, and it starts, and they can get spun out of control because they don't know, and they're not held to the same standards. No one's calling them out constantly for their actions. No one's going, hey, look, it's not okay for them to be like that. It's not okay to talk about people like that. It's not okay for them to be like that. It's not healthy for them to talk about that, because it's if they're going to start to spread these rumors, because their own self has realized that, so they're not going to sit there and tell it to themselves. They're going to start to bother other people. Okay, they're going to start to spread those rumors to other people. Okay, so they're starting to gaslight other people, and because their own subconscious has realized that they were weak, and once again, the narcissism and all the greed and all the ego and this and that, and those accusations, that's all okay if it was to yourself, as long as you didn't affect other people. Once you start to affect other people, that's when it crosses the line into that somehow they feel a false sense of energy by the need to want to shame other people. Okay. And they can't talk about somebody else's strengths, okay, because it's not in them. Strength is not in them. Okay, you have to be strong to talk about somebody else's strengths. You have to be strong foundation yourself to talk about somebody else's strengths. You have to be iron yourself to sharpen another iron. Okay, if not, what I'm saying, you're a little whatever that is. What I'm saying. I mean, but practicing humility by not triggering, this can trigger that narcissistic circle, which it can be dangerous, because these people get cuckoo and out of control. Okay, they could get cuckoo, out of control, and it could be ultimately detrimental to and worse, in the effects that it's having in your life, because then they could really start to spin out of control and get really cuckoo. Gaslighting, betas recruiting other betas, them seeking out another weak individual, and those. So I had seen this in deeper levels, than that. See, if somebody was strong and this and that, they won't seek out somebody strong to go against somebody strong. And see, a beta is gonna find another weak individual, another person that's insecure. And they'll be able to see that, and they'll be able to sense that, and it's going to be verbalized eventually, and it could be through Freudism, them admitting it, the numbers coming out, somebody else, the tests, the standards for achievement, that weren't met. And so they'll start to recruit other betas, and then start to gaslight other people, because their own imperfections and this and that, as it's their own subconscious has realized this, and it's falsely inflating it with the need to want to shame other people, because they're thinking that they get attention from this, and it's momentarily gaining attention, which ultimately it's pessimistic. Okay, and these a pessimistic viewpoint, that the cup is half empty. A pessimistic viewpoint, it manifests into actions. Okay, these pessimistic thoughts, they manifest into pessimistic actions, and pessimism. Okay, this viewpoint of their cup being half empty is the mother of jealousy. Okay, so pessimism is the mother of jealousy. Okay, so this viewpoint that they're wanting, jealousy is wanting something that they don't have, is the mother, and pessimism is the mother of jealousy. Okay, so they want what somebody else have, and usually this them being called out on that, or being having to admit any type of flaw, any type of imperfection, this and that. So I had another narcissistic phrase that these people will say, is that they'll say it's not fair. They go, it's not fair, and they start maybe playing a victim, or this not fair, and life's not fair, and but then they'll probably say like life isn't fair, and then spin that in another way too, because that's avoiding their own realizations, and they've been avoiding this realization for a long time, and they'll start to do any and all costs to avoid the realization, okay? And the realization is that we're all not perfect. We're all made mistakes. We've all done something wrong. We've all sinned. We've all had our own little flaws. And once you've admitted that, and you've opened the room, and you realize that you're okay with that, you say, oh, well, you know what? I did the best I could, and I made all these mistakes, but I was actually able to learn a lot, and I was able to learn a lot, and then you're able to grow, okay? So the faster that you do that, you're able to grow, okay? You're able to grow mentally, you're able to grow strong, and to be a stronger person at the end of the day, okay? And you know, once you can honestly say that to yourself, okay? But the narcissists, they'll do any and all costs to try to stay in a state of denial, and not admitting their flaws, trying to cover up their losses, trying to, you know, gaslight, get other people to lie about their losses, get other people to lie about them, you know, this and that. And they'll start to get really cuckoo. Okay, so you know, things that you could trigger these narcissistic reactions out of people. You know what I'm saying? And that might being what I called was describing something, if the shoe fits, wear it. Okay, so if the shoe fits, wear it. You know, and that can be really dangerous, because that can haywire a narcissist and their little psychological traps and their games and their shame and all this and that, and why they're doing that, and why they're being so negative and talking about all negative things, and all, you know, negative, you know, actually identifying and why they would feel the need to want to be so negative, you know, in the first place. You know, saying that it can trigger, you know, a narcissist, and you can just mention this in a really vague point, and the narcissist will actually start to admit all these things. Okay, so it's called "If the shoe fits, wear it." All right, if the shoe fits, wear it. Okay, so you could start to describe somebody or somebody's actions, and it could you know, it could be a whole lot of other people's actions that have happened in the past, and you know, talk about somebody, you know, some of the things that they did that were negative. Okay, so like an example of this could be like, well, this person, they did that negatively, and they shouldn't have done that. I don't know why they did that. It was a mistake. This and that, but you know, somebody, this and that, and you're just vaguely describing a situation. It didn't apply to them, but they will actually come out the woodwork because they realize that that's what they were guilty of. Okay, so if the shoe fits, wear it. And you could vaguely describe somebody else's negative actions, and the narcissist will flip out. Okay, this is one of the things that will actually drive them absolutely crazy. So they can't talk about somebody else's the good things in somebody else. They can't talk about extenuate somebody else's strengths, because their own ego, their own insecurities. They're insecure in so many different ways, and their subconscious knows it. That if you start to describe vaguely without saying their name, don't say their name, okay? Don't even say their name, but just vaguely describe some of their actions, okay? And if the shoe fits, wear it. They'll start to admit it. They start to have all these admissions of guilt, and to start to say, to start to brag about what they did. And this and that, that's called "If the shoe fits, wear it." Vague, real vague, just describing what happened. You know, not negatively talking about anybody, and not even mentioning anybody else's names, but it'll haywire a narcissist thinking, because they subconsciously know that they were guilty, and they were playing these psychological games, and they ultimately know that that wasn't right. They ultimately know, their subconscious knows that that wasn't, it's not okay to do that. They wouldn't be okay with them being treated like that themselves. And so they're subconsciously, they flip out, and it causes what was referred to as narcissistic rage. Okay, narcissistic rage was them actually going off the cuff of admitting something that, admitting a crime, admitting to guilt that that didn't have an accuser. Okay, it was just talking about a crime that was committed. Okay, and the narcissist goes, "Hey, that was me." Okay, so it could be a crime that was committed, and they were just describing the crime, what had happened. But the narcissist, somehow they get off on hearing their own name. So you don't say their own name, and they'll go, "Hey, that was me. I did that." Okay, and they start to have this admission of guilt for that. So that's called, "If the shoe fits, wear it." Okay, and they'll start to one where the shoe of guilt. But ultimately, maybe for momentarily their own insecurities are realized, saying, and they're brought to light, saying, but ultimately they think that they're getting attention by hearing their own name. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this one up, and continue to talk about these here later. Thanks.